皆さん、こんにちは。ジョーです。今日はですね、ソラナだけではないんですけれども、ブロックチェーン領域で非常に注目を集めております、プライバシーのですね、領域に非常に特化して開発を進めているアーキウムのですね、CEO、ヤニキさんに来ていただきました。今日はですね、ユースケースもそうなんですけれども、グロースのストラテジーだったりとか、あとは先日、コインリストでのセールというところも発表されたので、そういったところもですね、皆さんも興味あれば、ぜひ見ていただければと思っております。Okay. Thank you, Yannick, for your time, for your, time. I know you're really busy traveling and all over, on your shoulder, but today we like to introduce what the Arcim is and what you guys been doing, and also the recent announcement of obviously on the CoinList sale. But also I think it's very interesting how you guys took a path for the growth strategy, and also the videos that you announced about the DEX trading. So thank you so much for your time, and love to start your introduction, if you don't mind.
Yeah, thanks for having me. So yeah, I'm Yannick, CEO and co-founder at Arcium, and what we are building at Arcium is the encrypted supercomputer. So allowing for any type of application, any type of computation, anything to be executed in a fully encrypted way. And what that means in a blockchain setting is, for example, being able to have full on-chain privacy. So since blockchains by default are fully public, you can see everything. There's a lot of applications that cannot be realized by default on top of blockchains. And so Arcium steps in and enables anything, be it trading, be it sharing documents, be it training AI models. So everything can be done in an encrypted way where we can protect highly sensitive data without anyone having to trust a third party. So we make use of cryptography and allow for everything to be encrypted while anything can be computed.
Thank you. How did you guys start the company or the business? It's been a while, or is it quite new, or how is the status?
Yeah, so we started 3 years ago, and initially we were known as Elusive instead of Arcium. And we initially started it by providing on-chain transactional privacy. So the first problem that we identified and tackled on top of Solana was that any transaction that you're sending is entirely public. And that can get quite problematic if you think about at some point moving all of the financial system on chain and you paying your rent and your groceries and whatever you're doing on top of this blockchain and anyone being able to see that, right? And so we identified that as a problem and built out Elusive, which yeah, I guess was the precursor to Arcium, which allowed your transactions to be private. And while building out the system, we were developing some more advanced technology, which now is Arcium, which allowed for computations to be executed over everyone's encrypted data, right? And so you have some data that is encrypted, I have some data that is encrypted. And with Arcium, we are able to compute over our shared encrypted data without having to share it. And for example, are able to execute a trade or a token swap or whatever in a way where nobody learns anything from the other party. And so we were building out this technology specifically in order to allow for decentralized, trustless compliance while doing privacy on chain. And through developing this technology, which involved doing a lot of mathematical research and um, very tough engineering. So I think at the end of the day, we might have picked one of the most difficult problems to actually tackle because it's just so much engineering and research to be done. We realized that this technology that we were building was so powerful, not just for crypto applications, but also for traditional businesses to use this kind of private computing, where you can have encrypted data being owned by multiple parties and run any computations over that data, right? And so we step by step evolved into Arcium, which now is this encrypted supercomputer, which can be used both on chain where anyone within their on-chain smart contracts can have encrypted state, encrypted functions that can be executed entirely in private while still being on-chain. At the same time, people and companies and institutions can use Arcium in an off-chain way, where they directly communicate with Arcium, with this encrypted network, and can send it encrypted data and get encrypted outputs back. So there's nobody in between that sees anything. The data you get back, you can mathematically verify that it's correct, but there's no one in between that you have to trust, and your data always remains your data, while being able to build way more powerful applications, right? So I think one of the big examples that is quite tangible for everyone listening is healthcare. So you having your sensitive patient information, you having some health data trackers on you that just collect this huge set of very sensitive data and very valuable data that if you were to be able to use all of this data collectively could yield incredibly valuable insights. But you can't just give the data to some centralized trusted player or leave it in public because it's so sensitive. And so with Arcium, it's possible to, let's say, train an AI model over all of this data while you remain the owner of that data. And everybody can access the resulting model and get the benefits while never having to give up their data ownership.
Thank you. And I saw the recent videos that you guys posted on Twitter that DEX using Arcium, and not everything, but some of the data is encrypted and not being published. But can you briefly talk about what do you guys do, why that's very important, and why that's valuable to the community?
Yeah, so nowadays in TradFi, almost 60% of daily US spot volume being traded happens off exchange in so-called dark pools. And so there's many reasons for trading in dark pools in TradFi. One of the reasons might be you wanting to move some large asset holding without impacting the market. And so what happens in TradFi is that those people use Citadel and JP Morgan, and those companies run private order books. And so within those order books, they then match those trades, and at the end of the day, settle it on the exchange. And that allows those players to move the assets without publicly impacting the markets. And that's something that hasn't been possible on top of the blockchain because everything is transparent. And that's a very valuable application, both for individuals, because you can hide your trading strategies, for example, but also for onboarding institutionals, because they require this level of privacy. So we've seen a lot of institutionals actually make use of blockchains in a private permission setting where internally they're running some distributed ledgers, but not being able to actually move their activities on top of a public blockchain because everything is public. And so by having fully encrypted trading, anyone can privately trade without having to disclose to the public what they're doing. So I think that's one of the fundamental DeFi applications that we need to enable on top of a blockchain in order to attract the level of adoption, especially from institutionals, that is required for Solana and all other ecosystems to succeed. And so we have a lot of teams actually starting to build these kinds of applications on top of Arcium in order to provide this level of privacy for trading.
I see. What about the existing trading platform? Do they, can they use your Arcium, even after they launch the product, or how difficult or how easy to implement Arcium into existing products?
Yeah, that's actually an excellent question. And so I think one of the big problems for privacy technology in the past has been both that it was relatively slow and not incredibly powerful, and at the same time, a very bad user or rather developer experience. And so what developers had to do in the past in order to add some level of privacy to their applications was basically be a PhD in mathematics, because they themselves manually had to implement all of those very complex, very cryptographic mathematical algorithms. And so there's only a very small set of developers, I guess, in the world that are capable of doing those things. And so that's a very limiting factor. So what we did at Arcium is we set out to abstract all of this complex cryptography and mathematics away from the developer. And what that means now is that developers can add privacy and encrypted computing to their applications with a few lines of code. And so for Solana applications, what it means is that the developers simply add our custom Rust compiler, Arcis, as a dependency to their programs. And then within their smart contract, which can be an existing smart contract, they simply specify this part right here should be executed in a private way, and this part right here should be executed in a public way, and this data, this account is encrypted, this data, this account is public, and then they compile it and upload it to the blockchain, and all of those encrypted private computations are automatically being taken care of. So it's possible to not only build entirely new private applications that operate over encrypted data, but you can simply extend existing applications with this functionality. And what we've seen from developers is that there's basically a need to add privacy and this kind of encrypted computing to almost every application. And so we really set out to make it as simple as possible so that a developer only has to understand that it's possible to do private computations, and they only require, at the end of the day, one line of code of adding that.
Amazing. And also, Arcium is kind of known as the brand or the project and Solana ecosystem. Is the technology applicable to other application on different chains, or is it only for Solana? Or
Yeah, so we are. I mean, we've been building for 3 years now on Solana, and I at this point would call us a core part of the ecosystem because I mean our first angel that invested in us was totally back in 22, and we've been working very closely with all of the people in this ecosystem. But the technology itself is applicable to everything. So it's applicable to any blockchain network, and it's applicable to non-blockchain use cases as well. And I think that's very interesting. So we consciously didn't, yeah, and we've had discussions about that, right? When we were speccing out how Arcium should look like, we had discussions with people that said, hey, you should build your own blockchain, your own encrypted blockchain with that. But what was important for us is to allow to have privacy on top of existing networks, where you can have composable privacy. So you can have privacy when privacy matters and at places where privacy makes sense. And you can have public state when that makes sense. And so this composable nature really is core to our design, where Arcium itself functions as a stateless computing network. And that stateless computing network can be accessed from existing blockchain networks, but can also be accessed directly in an off-chain way. And so I think that's really the role of Arcium to, at the end of the day, be this encrypted supercomputer that will be leveraged from all blockchain networks and at the same time will be leveraged from Web2 companies. Yeah.
I see. And I thought that was very interesting that you guys acquired or merged with a company that previously JP Morgan or and other giants invested in. How did it happen? And also how accelerate, how the merger and acquisition accelerate the growth of Arcium?
Yeah, so what we did last year is we acquired Inpher, which had been our largest Web2 competitor. And they've been around for around 8 years, a bit more than 8 years now. And what they did is they were leveraging the same cryptography that we've been building with in order to provide encrypted computing. And the technology is called MPC, Secure Multi-Party Computation. And the way they've been leveraging that technology was for encrypted AI. So being able to train models over distributed encrypted data without anyone having to share the actual underlying data. Everything remains encrypted, yet being able to train those models. And then at the same time, allowing for inference, for predictions using those models without having to expose any data. And they've been offering that technology for TradFi players, for large healthcare players, but also for defense players. So they've been really, playing this traditional confidential computing game, if you will. And the technology that we've been building over the last few years was really fine-tuned from all of its different parameters for encrypted on-chain applications and DeFi applications. And so by acquiring this team, we not just acquired the technology, but also some of the, I guess, most important mathematicians in this space who've been developing and researching some of the most important protocols. And so this acquisition really allowed us to greatly accelerate our vision of being able to execute any computation in a fully encrypted way, because now we are able to offer everything from financial DeFi applications all the way towards training encrypted models, inferring into those models. And we already have teams both in the crypto space who are building, let's say, private machine learning marketplaces where people can upload fully encrypted computer programs and machine learning models and offer them in a marketplace where other parties can use those models with their sensitive data, and they don't have to see the model, and whoever provides the model doesn't have to expose the model, right? Because if you were to just upload some model on top of the blockchain, anyone could just steal it and use it at their own disposal. And so with Arcium, they can keep ownership of the model. And with a smart contract, people can pay to use the model, and they don't have to expose their own data when using the model. So there's people building these kind of end-to-end encrypted AI marketplaces and agent workflows. At the same time, we have Web2 teams, and very soon we'll be able to announce a first very, very big partnership that I think is significant in the space of a big Web2 player using Arcium for the same thing of being able to train models over encrypted data. And all of that was really enabled of us acquiring this Web2 competitor and bringing them from this sort of SaaS-like level where they were keeping their patents and technology private and doing this bidding and sales with different companies and government agencies into Arcium, where Arcium is this open encrypted supercomputer that anyone can use. So I think that has been a significant shift also for the team joining Arcium. And this team hasn't had any touching points with crypto before. And now they're fully aligned with this vision of giving everyone access to encrypted computing. So anyone can build applications, any company can use it without them having to be some, I guess, SaaS-like sales customer to Arcium. They can just access encrypted computing.
I see. So the revenue coming from usage of the Arcium service, encryption services, or
So it's you can think of it like a blockchain network where you essentially pay a gas fee, right, for transactions normally on a blockchain network. But for Arcium, it's different. You're not paying per transaction, but for every encrypted computation. And so based on the complexity of this computation, the customer then pays. And that can be within a smart contract. So you send, let's say in the case of a dark pool, an encrypted order book, you're sending an encrypted trade. And so you have the normal fee of the blockchain network and then a fee for Arcium, which you have to pay in order for the transaction to go through on a blockchain. In a more traditional sense, you wouldn't have to pay the blockchain fee, but just the Arcium fee, I guess. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. And now you're about to conduct the CoinList sale. What are the purpose of the sale? And also, I don't mean to like push like very hard to the audience, but I kind of want to briefly go over the sales.
Yeah. So I think what we've really been looking at strongly is being able to involve the community as much as possible. So previously we've raised around 10 million from angel investors and Coinbase Ventures, for example. And we really wanted to make Arcium and the dedicated token something that is very community aligned. And so that's why we decided to go down the road of doing a CoinList sale, and not just doing a CoinList sale, but offering the CoinList sale with zero vesting. So having the token unlocked directly at TG. So I think that's something important because that enables anyone to directly participate in the network, directly be able to run nodes, to stake the tokens, and actively participate in this encrypted supercomputer. So that has been very important for us. And what we did previously is we started doing this big community alignment, I think, by trying to get a lot of ecosystem players on board as well. So I think we always were pushing towards having as much allocation as possible to community and angels. And so previously, I think everyone almost in the Solana ecosystem has angeled into Arcium. And I think that's very exciting because that allows us to really build out Arcium as this infrastructure layer that enables all of those teams to have encrypted computing and be aligned with this vision of adding privacy to every application.
I see. And also you receive some money from angels from other ecosystems. So hopefully
Yes.
you
Yeah, no, 100%. So I think Keone, the founder of Monad, for example, and Namik from MegaETH and many more. So Arcium's vision really is to enable encrypted computing on top of every blockchain network. And so Solana is only the starting point, and down the line, every single blockchain network will have access to this kind of encrypted computing. And yeah, so I think that's a great point. Yeah. So we really I think we've seen through the years of us being in crypto in general that there's this huge need in every single ecosystem to have composable privacy. And I think that's the answer to it. And Arcium, as I said, from an architectural standpoint, being this stateless computing network, because that enables Arcium to serve encrypted computing to every network without having to be fixed on some specific network or having to bring every user to Arcium. Instead, Arcium goes to where the users are at.
yeah. And I think not just Arcium, but also the privacy on blockchain has been kind of neglected because most of the existing users are, traders and not institutionalized players. So then they didn't really have to care much. But now we're very, very at the important point that a lot of institutional and also people from government, they try to
Yeah.
get involved. So this is like really, really big topic, I guess. And then now you're, here to like showcase your architecture and also the technology, the use cases. I'm very excited.
Yeah, I think it's multiple aspects. I think it's both on this institutional and government level, but also on an individual level, right? On an individual level, you don't want to give up all of your privacy because if you compare Web3 to Web2, Web2 offers way better privacy, and even Web2 doesn't really offer that great of a privacy, but it's still way better than what Web3 is offering. So I think that's one angle. And the other angle is enabling entirely new, way more powerful applications. So that's really the way that I try to think of it. I try to think of it as being able to now build applications like let's say training encrypted models over highly sensitive data, which is only possible in a distributed way, leveraging blockchains, which is something that you wouldn't even have dreamt of having in the past. So I think that's really the power. And that will also, I think, attract way more players to be adopting this kind of technology, not just for being able to use blockchains as financial payment rails, but also being able to put way more business and governmental logic on top of the blockchain because you can have data security and you can't just have data security and privacy, but you're able to collectively leverage all of the encrypted data to get way more insights without ever having to give up the data ownership.
Thank you. I think we kind of have to running out the time. And is there anything that you want to mention about your business or roadmaps or whatever that's very impactful to the business?
Yeah, so we have our public testnet coming up. So you should check out our socials in order to not miss out on the public testnet announcement. And we have a few more, I think, very exciting announcements coming very soon.
Wow. Okay. I want to know about it.
Yeah.
Like very soon or
Very soon, yeah. Very soon.
okay. I can't wait.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you so much for your time.